Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Altar of Stars. I'm very grateful that you found your way here. My name is Teagan West. I'm a ritualist, astrologer, drum maker, and ancestral lineage healing practitioner on Haudenosaunee land, so-called upstate New York. And my own ancestors come from Ireland, Syria, Lebanon, Sicily, and Anishinaabe territory in what is now known as Canada. And my ancestors are a big part of my work and the readings that I offer here. So they're a synthesis of astrology and divination, but also animism and land connectedness to form this kind of intersection of cultural repair through these ancestral knowledge systems. And so if you like what I share here, you can find my work over on SUBSTACK at the Altar of Stars, where there's a pretty big archive at this point of weekly astrology readings in the form of podcasts that I've been sharing for a couple years, as well as tarot spreads and different ancestral rituals for each of the Wheel of the Year holidays or the new and full moons every month. So find me over there if you're interested in going deeper. But yeah, I hope that you enjoy this reading, and if you ever desire to work together one-on-one, there's opportunities to do that. You can find the links for that in the show notes. But yeah, enjoy, take good care of yourselves, my friends. Thanks for being here. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the Altar of Stars. This is the week ahead reading for the week of May 3rd, 2026. And if you're listening to this as a podcast right now on Substack, I am trying something a little different. I'm actually recording the visual, which I haven't done in all of my years recording these weekly readings. So please excuse any road bumps in advance. But I feel very excited to be coming on here. I've had the strong impulse of sharing these weekly readings in different ways. So if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome. I am really excited about whatever's to come from this. You know, usually I'm kind of doing these readings with my eyes closed from a veiled place, so it's actually quite jarring to like see to feel myself being perceived, and hopefully it doesn't serve as an obstacle. I feel, be curious to see how this goes. But yeah, it's May 3rd. I hope you enjoyed your Beltana. I hope you enjoyed that full moon in Scorpio. It felt major. It felt like it was doing some work of detoxification. Like I'm picturing the vultures coming to pick away the rest of whatever decay was left in our life from the past cycle. And I feel that really strongly, like there was this sense of closure. And what felt so interesting to mark between the new moon in Aries, culminating then at the full moon of Scorpio, both of these lunations ruled by Mars in Aries, like a very dignified Mars, was the sense that something opened on the new moon in Aries. And it had this kind of overlay of like new life opening and then actually needing to bring close to the past cycle fully closing, right, with the full moon in Scorpio. And I like that there was this sense that the emergent new stuff that's coming through each of our corners like suddenly blossomed over the weekend of the new moon in Aries. And then there was this essence that something needed to come to a head at the full moon of Scorpio. Something needed to fully find its closure and be done with it and have this kind of like burial rite. That's what I really felt, is like a proper death rite to this past cycle and this old self. And I think, it's very cliche at this point to talk about, oh, we're so done, oh, we're so back. Like it is kind of I feel it's a little rot how often I myself in these readings have been talking about like closing out the past cycle and opening the new one, and that threshold moment between the two phases of growth. But it's not an overnight process. It's a continuum. It's not a line, right? It's not a linear growth arc. It's a circle. And it's kind of spiralic in that way, where I feel, at least personally, there's been many layers of like, these new opportunities and dreams and visions burgeoning within me, like many different iterations or layers of that newness blossoming, right? It's not just one flower, it's like a whole garden popping up. It's a whole new ecosystem, a whole new landscape. And then that also means there's just as many aspects or dimensions of the death cycle that need to occur. It's not just one thing. And I think that that's what I want to start by emphasizing, that I'm really sensing is like there are multitudes to this process. And as soon as Uranus entered Gemini, I'm so curious how y'all are feeling that out there. I'm planning on sharing a written transmission of the Uranus and Gemini invocations for each rising sign in the coming week, because I've wanted to give a moment to really feel this energy and really be like, what is this for us? It's brand new. We've never been here before. It's been over 80 years since Uranus has been in Gemini, which is a whole generation, right? Like when I say whole generation, like their whole life cycle. The elders right now maybe came in right after that last time Uranus was in Gemini. So it's big. It's like a whole new collective chapter we're heading into. And what I have really felt, and from the divination that I did today, I have it in front of me, just like the keynotes from it. What I'm really feeling is the true essence of Uranus as the sky god, which is this formless place, right? It is this like divine conception that Uranus brings, even in the myth of Uranus as this great unmanifest reality, right? When we talk about the sky, we're actually talking about like pure undifferentiated awareness, the pool of all possibility, all creative potential, right? That unmanifest place where nothing has yet come into form. That's Uranus's like source code. That's the true state of Uranus that then brings this divine revelation, that then brings this penetration into physical manifest reality to bring something into form. And we are the conduits through which that creative act is taking place. We are the bridge. That is like, when I've really sat with Uranus over the years, I feel the way that human consciousness and all consciousness in manifest reality is really the bridge for that beautiful vision that comes from that unmanifest state to then take form and penetrate into this reality through manifestation, right? And manifestation is such a loaded word at this point, but that is the process that Uranus brings. And so to have Uranus in this brand new territory in the sky, 0 degrees of Gemini right now, it is the essence of unmanifest reality. It is the essence of like dipping into the pool of all things, and in many ways like creating the conditions in ourselves to be open to that revelation, to be open to that aha moment, that eureka, that lightning strike of awareness, of enlightenment that Uranus brings into our system, into our consciousness. And so I say this because I really get the strong sense that a lot of us, I was talking about it with the live mentorship group in our online course, the astrology course. We met last Monday and we were talking about it together, where it's like it really feels like we just got chewed up and spit out in a whole new realm, like a whole new reality that is like completely clean slate vibes. And it's a little disorienting, but it also feels really inspiring. It reminds me of the empty room card in the Kim Kranz archetype deck. I love that card, the empty room, because it's a space, it's a container with nothing in it yet. And so your imagination gets to fill that space with whatever it can envision. And I'm really thinking about the technology of imagination here, right? We need it. We actually, above all else, when we are presented with the empty room, with the clean slate, it is an immediate invitation to activate our imagination as a visioning technology, as a way of participating, right? And I think that we can get so like maybe intimidated by the clean slate. I'm feeling that right now. I'll speak for myself, not for anyone else. But I'm feeling the way that it's like, whoa, okay, I don't know what to do with all this. It's quite daunting to sit in front of a blank canvas. But the tools we have, our paintbrush and our palette, is our own imagination. And that's a huge gift. Like, imagination as a technology of our own consciousness to create whatever it can come up with, it's huge, and it's so needed right now, I feel, at the beginning of this new Uranian energy and this new realm we're entering. Because the thing is, as Uranus starts to apply more into aspect with Saturn and Neptune and Pluto, that are all sitting at the very early degrees of other fire and air signs, as Uranus starts to apply into aspect with those other planetary ancestors, it's going to start to activate things. It's going to start to bring new tools into our little artists bucket that we get to play and paint with and create with. And so it's good to start stirring the waters of our own imagination and really, for me, again and again, I feel our work is to create the conditions in our consciousness to be able to be in that active dreaming and imagination state. And I know I've been saying it since the beginning of the year, but truly, if our sense organs and our mind and our psyche is being inundated with noise 24/7, which is very rampant right now with phones and that whole facet of our reality, we're going to clog up the faculties of imagination and vision. And for me, it's a daily practice of like, how clear can I make my awareness? How much can I discern and really try to be clearing out how much our sense organs get clogged up by the noise? Because our greatest asset right now is our imagination and our vision, and being able to bring that into conscious creative processes. And I really feel that maybe in this moment I'll say, I feel right now I'm thinking about May at a high level. I'm thinking about the month ahead that these energies are offering and affording us. It's like, get in your artist studio. You've got all the tools you need. Start fucking around and finding out. Start making stuff happen. And that is too some of the spirit that this Aries energy I feel is still bringing behind it. Like, you can do whatever you want, but do something, like make something happen. Don't just sit idle in that studio. That's where we start to like fold in on ourselves and feel frozen in our like non-action. It starts to like perpetuate itself, right? So I'm really feeling that May at a high level, that's what these energies are affording between Uranus and Pluto and Saturn and Neptune, all in the fire and air, right? There's a lot of like creative, generative capacity there, but it all depends on what we do with it. And if, the shadow side to Uranus that is very real, that I've talked about before in this new territory of Gemini, is that the noise gets even louder. It gets way more dialed up, especially as it relates to technology and the airwaves of social media and what's running through the circuit boards that we are plugged into through screens and through our phones, right? So it could go either way. And it's always our choice as to what we're actually participating in. And my daily dedication and truly like discipline is how much can I mitigate and clear my sense organs so that my mind can be spacious, so that these visioning centers and my own imaginal faculties have as much space as they need to start creating and actually embrace this sense of unmanifest reality and potential, right? Because again, that's what Uranus brings, is that potential. And I felt it, like the last thing in my divination was I pulled a rune, and of course it's Odin's rune, just the blank rune, which to me is actually quite Uranian. It's like you're in touch with the mystery now, baby, and you're birthing from that place of like divine conception. And a lot of the other, I want to say one thing before I get into the other aspects of the divination, but what we spoke about in our live mentorship group last week has really stayed with me, and it has continued to ring true, that there's a sense that the door to whatever we each just came out of in our own respective processes is like really fully closed now. And the sense is like, no, you can't go back there. Like, we're done. We're done with all the patterns, all the stuff in the past life phase that we're coming out of. You're really done now. There's nothing for you there. That's what one of the beloveds said in circle. It's true. She was like, there's nothing left for you back there. And that's just really staying with me. So I wanted to share it with you all too. Shout out also to these amazing blossoming astrologers in the mentorship cohort. I'm going to start a little alumni page for them to share their information, because they are all becoming such stunning astrologers. I feel so honored and moved to be in circle with these people, and feel really excited for them to start sharing their gifts with the world as well. So shout out to the Altar of Stars oracles. But anyways, the other few things that came through in my divination that feel like many pieces of the same puzzle is, first and foremost, a lot of vulture medicine. And this I've been seeing just where I live in the land. Like, the vultures have been circling constantly. I learned that the word for a whole grouping of vultures is called a kettle, as they circle around the air vents in the sky, and there have been kettles of vultures every day. And a few years ago, I was doing some ancestral work, and the vultures came in, and one of my ancestors was like, vultures come picking. The vultures are coming to pick away all the dead, decaying shit that's actually in the way. They're such helpful creatures. But a lot of that came up in the divination today too, is like, we're still doing some serious detoxification and serious clearing. And it's a little jarring, because something that I've experienced when there's like a lot of clearing happening in ceremony, like in the community here, when we're doing a lot of clearing, it can make you feel super sensitive. And I want to just offer for a moment, with all that's been cleared away here, or maybe there's a sense that you have, as I'm saying this, that you could use a clearing, because that's also very real. Like, if you feel, oh man, maybe I should do some cleansing stuff this week, it's a good week for it, honestly. But when you have cleared away a lot of the density and the gunk and the stagnant energy that's built up in your space, suddenly you're very sensitive, right? There's a porousness, and that porousness also creates a lot of access to more subtle forms of communication with the unseen. That came up a lot in the divination for this week. And so it's this combination of the vulture magic of like clearing and detoxing and just like getting the gunk out of your space, so that there's a sense of attunement to the subtle forms of communication that are happening right now. And I feel this in the proximity to the other world, or the spirit world, or unmanifest reality that is all around us all the time, that is very much a part of this ecosystem of relations that Uranus brings us in contact with, especially when Uranus is sitting at 0 degrees of Gemini. There's a lot of proximity that is available to us, and a lot of communication with the unseen, with the hidden. And so for me, it's this sense of, are you listening? And can you create the conditions for really clearing your space and getting all the dust and gunk off, so that there's a sense of porousness and there's a little bit more ability to move in between the worlds. Because when we're moving in between the worlds, we are serving as a bridge between seen and unseen, between unmanifest and manifest reality. And so what I'm getting right now is that the work that Uranus is inviting us into is truly to become that bridge between unmanifest creative potential and then starting to bring it into the world through ideas, through visions, through aha moments and impulse, creative impulse, right? But in order to actually be available for that, to become that bridge, we got to clear the way. And so it's like that cleansing work, really important right now. creating the spaciousness, creating the conditions for our visioning center to be wide open, right? I'm seeing like the empty room within us that we get to fill with color. And that's revelatory creative work. That's the work of revolutionaries, in my opinion. And it takes dedication, it takes discipline to make the room clear enough for that, right? The inner sanctum. So there's that. And I feel also, a lot that came up in the divination there were these repeating themes between collaborating with spirits and deities or forms of consciousness that can help us in this. Like, we're not meant to do it alone, and I'm getting the sense that there's a real need to be cultivating regular relationship with those powers that are in each of our corners, whether they're deities that we're working with, whether they're ancestors or animal and plant spirits. Like, that feels actually really alive, is the plant spirit piece as I say it. But there's a need to be calling counsel and strengthening those relationships every day, every morning. Like, sitting down with your people, with those that are in your corner, to collaborate in this, because I'm getting that those relations, those connections are actually where the vision comes from. They're the messengers. And that's, now it's a little bit more clear that Uranus in Gemini is connecting us with the messengers, right? Those that can move across the veil, and our own sensitivity, our own clear space and attunement to the subtle is what allows us to pick up on those messages that they're bringing and hear them clearly. So the moving between the worlds, right? It's so funny, as that just happened, my screen went off and my eyes were closed. That was a little jarring. We're learning, we're getting there. But yeah, let me see if there's anything else that wants to be said about this. Yeah, so the daily dedication, the discipline is this is not just me, myself, and I. They're showing me an artist in their studio alone, sitting in front of their canvas, and the canvas is blank, and the artist has a paintbrush in their hand, but there's no paint. There's no color to paint with. And the paint is the materia. It's the materia, right? The actual ideas and unique material itself that we are going to create with, the unique vision that we can use our tools, our own vessel as a conduit to bring to life. And so the sense that I'm getting is it's we are the artist in the room sitting in front of the canvas, the blank canvas. It's beautiful. We are a very vital part of this process of bringing things through us into manifest creation. But what gives us the materium, the actual paint and color and ideas, right? That's what the paint is, to bring through us, are those messengers, are those spirits and deities that everything is afforded. And I can speak from personal experience as an artist and creator, and I've said this recently about my drum making work. I really believe, and I will say this till the day I die, that any power you feel from the pieces that I make, the drums, the rattles, etc., any spiritual power that you feel from those objects is completely afforded to me by the spirits that choose to work with me and through me. I am actually not capable of generating that power myself. I'm capable of being the conduit for it, of bringing it through my hands, through ritual and intention. But the actual energy, the actual force and power comes from the spirits themselves. That's the paint, is the power that the spirits are bringing. And then we get to be the one with a physical body in manifest reality to bring it through us into creation. And those spirits are ancestors, are plants or animals or deities or other than human kin that each of us work with. And they're completely unique to us. That counsel is completely our own. But our work is in being a good collaborator. And that takes dedication. That takes showing up for those relationships and connecting with them on a regular basis. Like you have to spend time cultivating those relationships. And I'm saying this from personal experience. If I didn't spend every morning at my altar with my people and with the beings that I work with, I don't think my work here would have any real body to it. I mean, it would, but it would not be nearly as powerful as what is afforded from those relations. It's a gift. Like this is the gift of our lifetime as individuals that are here to really participate in the world. The spirits are just as much, if not the most powerful facet of this ecosystem. May we take that seriously. And also, like, really celebrate and nurture and revel in those relationships. And I feel more and more, like that's the sense that I'm getting, is this new wave, as it were, of like how this revolution is going to go. I've been saying it since the beginning of the year. You and what army? And that's, my people have said this to me before, but they're reminding me of it right now. It's like every revolution throughout history has been different. And it's all depending on what you're fighting for and who you're fighting with. Who's at your back? Who's in your corner? Thousands of years ago, when our people were in connection and deep, constant relationship with the old gods and the powers of the land, that's who they were fighting with. And often, because of what's transpired over history, that's also what they were fighting for, to protect that from the church, from land theft and genocide and whatever else happened in our ancestral histories. They're like, remember there was a time where we were fighting with those bigger powers. They were part of our army. And in the old myths, we see this. There were people fighting with the old gods at their back. And that was just a normal part of their reality, right? And so now, like, there's been, I would say, quite a few generations and revolutions throughout time and history where we've lost touch with those old powers. And actually, a lot of the violence and rupture has been at the cost of this. Like, that has added a whole layer of destruction and dissonance and hardship to the revolutions that our people have moved through for the past few hundred years. This feels like a hot take, but it feels really true as I'm saying that. The part of the very challenging struggles that we've been experiencing for the past few hundred years are because of those ruptures with land and the other than human relations. This is something that came up when I was doing some work with my Anishinaabe ancestors, where a lot of the pain and suffering that still lives in the lineage, that's still kind of getting passed down into present day generations, one of the dimensions of it, not the whole thing. A lot of it was the land theft and colonization from French inhabiting Anishinaabe land in what is now known as Canada, right? A lot of it was from the literal, like, human to human ruptures and harm that were being caused, and also the secondary rupture, if not the formative rupture, which was the rupture between the humans and the spirits of place. That is very much a part of land theft, is rupturing those relationships. It's actually required for colonizing land, that you tear people away from the deep, intimate relationships they've built with the spirits of place where they live. Whether that's the land spirits, whatever it is, right? And we see this also in European history, and a lot of, what I've been sitting with lately were some of my Irish ancestors not so many generations ago, like within the past couple hundred years, that very recently experienced that rupture from the spirits of place. And that was just like a continuum of religious colonization, and then of course the forced starvation, etc. Like, there's many different layers where I don't think we really recognize it as much. The part of the rupture of any form of colonial harm is rupturing the relationship between humans and the land spirits and the spirits of place in general. And so the sense that I'm getting right now is that part of this work of recovery, and also coming full circle to like you and what army, right? That this new wave of revolutionary energy and all of that, part of it is this feels kind of big actually to realize this in this moment. It is the recovery of those relationships with the spirit world and with the spirits of the land in place. That is part of this revolution, is the recovery of those relationships so that then they can be at our back and we can learn how to love one another well again. That's so much a part of this repair process. It's not just between the humans anymore. It's between the humans and the ancestors and the land as a recovery, right? Remembering, putting it back together. Thank you for that. That feels really true and big to take in. But then, so I want to anchor this in like, how can that come into our day-to-day? How can we knowingly be trying to, in our own personal lives, recover those and repair those relationships so that we're resourced, so that it's like, and I want to say here, this is not just, we can't approach it in an exploitative way. It won't work. This is not just repairing relationship with the spirits of place or with the ancestors, etc., and the bigger powers so that they can work for us. So that they can work on our behalf and protect us for our own benefit. No. This has to be reciprocal. It has to come from a place of true reciprocity. And so that's our work as individuals. And then, of course, in our communities. But first and foremost, it starts at the personal level. How are you day to day working to mend and reweave those connections? And for me, it looks like showing up every morning at my altar, spending time, listening, cultivating relationship. And for those of you that this is new to, it's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel crunchy. I'm sure I'm not the only one with multiple generations of religious ideology layered over my own innate connection to the spirit world. It's like a rock that's been placed over a wellspring. It takes a lot of work to move that boulder. And that's our work. Every day you try to get a little nudge of that boulder to move so the wellspring of this emergent wisdom that comes up through our body as an emanation of the land can flow freely and inform our movements and where we're headed. And so in many ways, I feel that this clean slate moment that offers us so much potential, and it's kind of like pick your, what's the word? Not pick your fighter, but what are those books and games where you can choose your own narrative? Some of you probably know what I'm talking about. You get to choose your own pathway here. I'm picturing Dorothy standing at a 3-way fork in the road where you get to choose your path. Choose the story, choose the lore, right? But what's also required here that I want to mention that came up in the divination as well was the sense that we have to try our best to release our attachment to what we thought was going on. And the story we had, and this can be really subtle and subconscious or insidious, but I'm sure of it. All of us carry some narrative about what we thought our life was going to look like in the big picture. And some of us are pretty stubbornly attached to it going that way, to it working out in the way that we had planned. And it's not as simple as it sounds. What I'm getting is when I was a little kid and someone would ask me, this formation of our attachment to what we thought our life would be like starts developing in us from a very young age. Because we're conditioned in our culture, especially in capitalism, to spend our entire life shaping itself around a purpose of what our work and domestic life should look like. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I am saying it can create quite a fixed and stubborn and narrow view of the larger unfolding. And that it can actually take us out of relationship with the great mystery of it all and the creative dance that's trying to weave us into participation with something bigger than we could have ever imagined. So we get in our own way. We're cock blocking the great dream of the mystery coming through us easily. It's like when you bend a hose, right? Like the moment we get attached to outcome and how we thought our life was going to unfold, it's a bend in the hose that really blocks the flow of life force and mystery and creative will just moving through us and us stepping into the river and trusting wherever it's meant to take us. And I've been feeling this more and more recently, is that I don't have any idea where I'm going. I don't need to know anymore. And I'm convinced at this point the only thing that matters is cultivating my ability to listen deeply to my ancestors and to the larger pulse of intelligence that is life and the universe constantly moving around me, and cultivate my attunement to listen to that so I can catch the current and just trust wherever it's going to take me. All the plans I had, and I'm sure when all of us look back at our life, we can say this to a degree, that all the plans we had, what we thought was going to happen, it is not so. It is not where we've ended up right now. That's a beautiful thing. That frees us from the tight grip that our ego has on some determinate, stubborn story. That actually makes it much harder to participate in the ease at which we're being naturally drawn into the current that's right for us. I have full faith that my ancestors and the bigger powers know way better where I'm needed and what's good for me and where I should be going with my life than I do. I have such a limited purview. And so I say this because from a very young age, we are conditioned to think about the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? And somehow you're supposed to have a fucking answer to it. And so at 5, 6 years old, you're committed to growing up and being a firefighter or an astronaut or whatever the fuck. But some part of you gets stuck on that. And I'm not saying it's exactly this example, but consider for yourself what that might be. What are you still stuck on? Where's the wedge in the spoke that has a little bit of like baggage to it? Where you're still stubbornly stuck in some old narrative of how you thought all of this was going to go. That's not really at all what the energy of at least the cosmos and what seems to be happening on Earth right now. That's not where it's taking us. Our work is in like really releasing the grip to whatever we're still stuck on. And the same thing happens at the threshold of like, if you grew up in public school and you went down that conventional route, you know, when you're done with high school, suddenly you're supposed to have an answer to what do you want to be when you grow up? It's the same question over and over again that gets us really stubbornly gripped to an idea of how this is all going to go. And if we don't catch up our expectations with that, you know, for those of us that couldn't escape it. I had friends that when they graduated high school early and they bought a van and just like went traveling, like they, in my opinion, they escaped the conventional escalator of like, this is how it's supposed to go. They missed the question that we were all being inundated with of like, what do you want to be when you grow up though? You need an answer. You got to figure it out because you're about to spend thousands of dollars in student loan debt for the rest of your life to be tethered to the answer to that question. It's such a prison, right? And it takes a lot for us to fully release our grip on how we thought all of this was going to shake out. But now is as good a time as any to do our best to let it go fully so that we can give ourselves to the flow of life and the flow of the mystery and creative energies that are trying to work through our imagination. If the empty room in my consciousness still had an image that I was going to be a professional fashion photographer, and I'll admit, in that room, there's still an itty-bitty little image of me doing that, and a part of me holding out to that unfolding. It's like, girl, we are decades past that at this point. But if you haven't done the work to fully compost that and metabolize it, that empty room, that clean slate still has a mark on it that's going to like inhibit your imagining capacity to really dream bigger. That's the whole heart of what I'm trying to get at. What is blocking you from being able to dream bigger than the expectations you previously had about how all this was going to go? Because if you're still stuck and fixed on that old plan, you're limiting your capacity to dream into the present and the future. And really give yourself to like the divine plan, for lack of a better word. It sounds kind of cringy to me, but it's like to give yourself to the intelligence of life and the creative mystery. Because this is the thing, the mystery is not a void space. It's extremely generative. It's extremely creative. It's like a great big mother spider. She is weaving at all times, constantly weaving the web. The mystery is active. It is not passive. It is pulsing with creative potential. It is fully alive with energy, right? When we have this idea that the mystery is some inactive void space, we're missing the actual like felt sense experience of how it's trying to breathe life through us as an active source, right? So anyways, I've made my point, I hope. But so much of the other things that came into the divination that I feel like I want to maybe end with here is the sense that two other elements that I found really powerful. The first was in tandem with this whole like creative emergent thing, the Great Mother, in whatever form, like mother, mata, as the source of creation, which to me makes me think about the great womb, there it is. The womb is the empty room. Whoa. Shaw, dude. That. The empty room is a womb. Wow, this is bonkers. So that's the whole thing. I guess that's exactly what the Great Mother had to say as she came through the divination. And, you know, I have like chills about the way that the Great Mother came through multiple times, because this is the thing, is that also our relationship to the spirits or the deities or the ancestors, all of it is coming from, all of those beings and forms that we might work with are emanations of that creative presence that is represented by the mother, right? Like, what if, it makes me think, I'm thinking right now of like what I've learned from the Vedic tradition that one of my teachers said to me years ago that has stayed with me, is that all of these different deities that we see in the Vedic pantheon, like Lakshmi and Shiva and all of these different entities, are the many faces of the one source. And in the tradition I was studying, that one source is the Great Mother, right? From which all of creation is born of. And so what I'm feeling is that, coming full circle, all of these messenger beings, all of these spirits and ancestors, etc., that each of us work with, are emanations of the one. They are emanations of the Great Mother in that creative aspect, participating with us in our life. Like the sense that I'm getting is like, from her directly, she's like, I'm hidden in everything. I am all of them. We all come from that same source. And I don't need you to subscribe to that. It's just the way that this, language misses it. Even everything I just said isn't actually getting at the essence of it. Don't get caught up in the form. Try your best to like get your finger on the pulse of the essence of it. It's all being born out of that cosmic womb, right? That heart of all things. And so all these different emanations that we can work with are allies as messengers of that original creative source. And so, yeah, that's what I feel is like these themes this week of clearing our channel, clearing our field, doing a good deep cleanse, calling upon the vultures to help us get the rest of whatever shit is still lingering all the way out of our space, so we can be in that porous, subtle attunement to these, to become the bridge between seen and unseen, between unmanifest and manifest, right? To like allow ourselves to become that bridge and that conduit of vision and imagination penetrating into material form. That's us, baby. That's the artist in front of the canvas. And then developing relationships with those beings that serve on behalf of the Great Mother, as it were, serve on behalf of this creative origin to work through us, to give us colors to paint with, to give us ideas and visions to bring into reality, to bring to fruition. That's it. That's life. That's what we get to do as humans. And part of this moment in time, this revolution, is you and what army. It's recovering those relationships. And for me, it's like, this isn't anything new. This is incredibly old magic. It's our work to simply remember it, to put it all back together, to repair our relationship with these different dimensions of the ecosystem that have been violently separated and torn apart by the hyper-individualism of supremacy and this history of colonization that we're all having to fucking clean up after at this point. That's it. It's remembering, putting back together the old ways, the old magic. Our people thousands of years ago were doing exactly that. It's like leaning into the unseen powers that they were in deep kinship with, that they were indebted to in many ways for their own survival, to collaborate with and through. And the last piece that I love, it's the first thing that came through my divination, and I love that it's the last thing I'm ending with here. It was this image and really just like a vision of each of us in our own right, spending some time in front of the mirror. And the sense of it was really needing to try to see ourselves clearly in this moment. It was this invitation of like, look deeply at your own reflection. Who do you see? Introduce yourself. It's been a long time. And even as I'm saying that, this like, it's been a long time, it feels like it's lifetimes. Like truly, it feels like some kind of ancient thing that we're trying to see in the present moment of our reflection in the mirror. And so the sense is we need to reintroduce ourselves to ourself and spend some time looking at who we are now. You're not the same as you were. And sometimes it's really uncomfortable actually to like earnestly try to see yourself clearly in this moment. And try to catch up your old expectations of self to be clearly reflected at the present. Like release those old stories by looking deeply at who you are now. Mirror work was the biggest recommendation from the divination. Spend time with yourself as a way of catching up your ideas about who you are now and thus what you're capable of. Because if you're different and you feel different and you even like look and experience yourself differently, then you're capable of different things. And it's kind of like giving yourself permission for that to be true. Giving yourself the freedom and the liberation of that. Like free yourself from every other version that you were before this moment. It's important. So, mirror work, my friends. That's how also I feel in a way it's a magical act of like recoagulating and allowing our stories and self-concept to be congruent with who we see in the mirror today. It's a tricky thing because so often our sense of self is caught up in some much older version that isn't actually who we are now. And that split, that dissonance, can really pull us out of alignment with like, no, if I catch my stories up with who I am right now, then I can be creating from this place and this version of me in the present, and not stuck in these old narratives that are very limiting. Because my past version of self has a lot of stories about what they are not capable of. So, catch up. You're capable of different things now. You're allowed to change. You're allowed to be different. That's the whole point of this. You've been chewed up and spit out on the other side of whatever this major life transition is for each of us personally and collectively. So may we do our best to catch up with that and act accordingly, which is create from the present moment and give ourselves the creative liberty to change. A lot of the planetary ancestors are supporting us with that work. So may it be so. I realize I didn't say anything about the astrology, but I really did want to give like a week ahead / kind of general temperature check on the month ahead, the month of May especially. There's a lot going on. So let me just say, to close this out, knowing that a lot of what I just touched on is embedded, with the astrology, of course. It's here's the play-by-play of the week. Monday, May 4th, Mars in Aries, cardinal fire, will square Jupiter in Cancer. These are two hella dignified planets that have a lot to do with growth, and especially growth spurts, and that big generative creative will acting through us. And when I say acting, I want to emphasize action, like actually doing something about it. And so this week starts off with this Mars squaring Pluto, that would be rough. Mars squaring Jupiter on Monday, which gives us a lot of this. To me, it feels like a pep talk. Maybe everything I just said is actually like embedded within that moment. It's like, catch up. What do you want to do? What are you capable of here and now? Let's go. Let's make it happen, right? And always when Jupiter's involved, may we temper it with a healthy dose of realism and what we can viably do as humans within our limited capacity. And that's not to talk yourself out of it. Don't you dare do that. Don't you dare take what I just said to try to talk yourself out of actually making shit happen. No. It's just right size it. Right, this is what I love to do. I love to do this all the time as a very cardinal air Libra sun. Write out all of my creative ideas and visions. Just write them all out on paper. Get it all out of my system. All the dreams, like that's imagination. Just get it all out of you. Write it all down. See it for what it is. Make a big old mind map of it. It's a beautiful practice. It's like just creative vomit. Technicolor magic. And then spend some time, maybe circle 1 or 2 things that you can actually start to do practically. And do them. The Mars square Jupiter is like, write it all down, get excited about it, let the big surge of creative energy come through you, and then bring in a little bit of Saturn. Circle 1, if not 2 things, and just start there. And know that the other things will come into the fold when it's time, or you might have to let some of them go, and that's okay too. The grief of my life is having all of these ideas, all these beautiful little creative babies, and some of them I have to let go. But that's the work of discernment and actually using your creative will accordingly. It's limited, so use it wisely, right? And the week starts off with that big pep talk, that surge. And notice what wants to come through you. Like, this is energy that gives us the boost to do something about it. Hell yeah. Let us do something about it. So then a couple other things, like really there's not a lot going on this week astrologically, which is why I wanted to do a little divination for you. But then on Tuesday, we have, I would say, an added boost from Mercury squaring Pluto. So right now, Mercury has just entered Taurus, which is nice and grounding. Honestly, I thought about that. I'm like, okay, nice. Mercury is in Taurus, which is ruling over Uranus and Gemini. It gave us a nice little anchor, right? To me, it curbed the enthusiasm and potentially the chaos of Uranus's entrance into Gemini by also then Mercury being like, and I'm going to ground our asses down into Taurus for a little while here. So we've got 3 weeks of very practical moment-to-moment presence in our awareness and in our strategy of how we want to make shit happen. Mercury in Taurus is very practical because it's like our strategy wants to try to make something tangible. If we want something to actually be made manifest from all of our ideas and visions, we got to be really skillful about it. So that practicality can be a bit of a bummer at times, but it can also be really helpful. And I feel that, like, with everything that was just shared about, Mercury in Taurus is helping to bring that containment and to say, like, okay, great, we love that you have all of this beautiful creative vision. Now what's your strategy to ground it into the physical, to make it tangible? That's our work. It's helping to anchor Uranus's big, empty room, clean slate, dreaming into our hands. And saying, like, how are you going to use the tools that you have to make these things happen, right? The square with Pluto is interesting to me because it feels also, like an aspect of our process that was previously hidden from view is being revealed. Like, we're becoming aware of an element that we didn't see before that is really important for us to consider in our process. And it also gives that kind of like penetrating awareness into truth telling, truth bringing, and revelation. We might actually receive some insight this week that we weren't previously aware of, which may or may not be challenging, right? Sometimes when truth is revealed, it's a little harsh and sudden and abrupt, but the truth sets us free. That's always what Pluto is trying to do. So Tuesday might bring some of that truth telling into the mix. And then the day after that, on Wednesday, Pluto stations retrograde. So, this happens every year for a little while. And all of the transformation and the turning over of the soil and that which is hidden being revealed, all of that brings us into a bit of a reflective process. And there's no coincidence here that amidst everything that's coming on and all of this resurgence, Pluto is like, okay, yeah, well, now let's also integrate what we've been learning about this collective revolution and what is needed of us, right? That Pluto retrograde feels a little bit like what that message that was being brought about, like, you and what army? The revolution this time around is going to be a little different. What have we learned about what that will look like, and then what we need to do about it, which is, in my opinion, like really developing our relationship with the unseen and with those powers that support us. But it'll be different for each of us. And Pluto retrograde also has collective implications, right? It's like, I don't need to tell y'all at this point, Pluto moving through Aquarius since November 2024, we've had a lot of collective revealment happening, the truth being revealed over and over and over again. And so this, in a way, Pluto retrograde is like, let's integrate some of what we've been learning from this process and then pivot and adapt our processes and how we're going to go about this whole revolution thing and this collective upheaval into something that can sustain us long term, into something practical and helpful as we all make our way through this. Buckle up. And also, like, pace yourself. This is a marathon. And Pluto retrograde really, I feel, has reminded us of this last year too. It's like, this is a marathon. Pace yourself. And take time to integrate what you've learned so far about how you want to do this whole thing called a revolution, right? Be intentional about it. So, that's everything I want to say. Thanks for listening. If you listened on Substack, thank you so much. Love you and appreciate you. And yeah, if you're here listening or watching me, which is so strange still, on YouTube, I hope you enjoyed. And there's a lot more of this. There's a lot more where this came from over on Substack. I've been doing this for a couple of years now, so there's quite an archive that's been accumulated over there. If this is your first time seeing my work, I hope that it was helpful. I would love to hear how it landed and how all of y'all are doing out there. Like, truly, if anything, for me, the Pluto retrograde in Aquarius is like, we got to do this together. The only way through is together. So please, like, I want to know, how are y'all doing out there? How's this landing, right? Astrology, the most important planet is Earth. It's all about what's happening down here. So may we be good to each other. May we be good to ourselves. And may we make it through this with a lot of gentleness and ease and a lot of ancient benevolent support at our backs. May we work towards, like, recovering that sense of counsel. You and what army, right? All right, friends, much love. Take good care of yourselves and see you next week. Thanks for being here.